Hello everyone, and welcome to BASECAMP, the best way to start your day. I'm Pastor Joe, and I'm really glad that you joined us today. If you're new, welcome. BASECAMP is a tool to help you develop the habit of spending daily time with God. And for the last several weeks of BASECAMP, we have been following a study that we're doing in our church through the book of Exodus. And we've been biting off some pretty big chunks of the book of Exodus as we've worked through the story of God, Moses, and the people of Israel. But we're slowing down a little bit now as we get to chapter 20. If you recall, the people left Egypt and the promised land is actually northeast, but they go southeast. It's not as if, though, that God sent them in the wrong direction. God purposefully brings them back to the same mountain, the same region, where God initially met Moses in the burning bush. And he's brought them back here so that they would worship him, so that they would get to know him, so that the relationship can begin. If you remember back in chapter 19, God displays his power and his strength and his might to the people of Israel. And now he's getting ready to share with them the guidelines for how to live the best possible life. And this is really important. As we look at the 10 Commandments, we can either look at it as a list of rules that we have to follow and it's kind of a bummer, or we can actually look at them like a doctor's prescription, right? When you're not feeling well and you call the doctor or you go visit the doctor and he gives you some medicine to help you feel well, there's some instructions on the bottle. And it tells you how often to take the medicine, whether or not you need to have food with the medicine. Why? Because that's the way to utilize the medicine for the best possible result, to make you feel better. In the same way, the 10 Commandments are not God's way of really getting you to make life miserable. It's actually his prescription for the best possible life, the best possible way to live in relationship with him and with one another. So let's dig in. If you have your Bible with you, open to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus is about that far into the Bible, and we're going to look at big number 20. That's the chapter. And here's what verses 1 and 2 say. Then God gave the people all these instructions. I am the Lord your God who rescued you from the land of Egypt, the place of your slavery. Verse 3, you must not have any other God but me. Now, there are two things I want to draw to your attention in this first commandment. The first is this: don't skip over verse 2, right? We can immediately go like, well, what's the first commandment? Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. But we have to have that initial comment, the preamble, as it were, to the 10 Commandments. Notice what he says. I am the Lord your God who rescued you from the land of Egypt, the place of your slavery. And then he says, you must not have any other God but me. Now, why does that matter? It matters because it has significant bearing on how we understand our relationship to God. God does not say, God could have come to the people when they were in slavery in Egypt and said, if you obey me, if you follow all of my rules, maybe I'll consider rescuing you from slavery. But that's not what he does. He rescues them, he draws them to himself, frees them from slavery, and says, now that you've seen what I can do, now that you've seen my love for you, now obey the commands that I've given you. It's as if he says, see, I want what's best for you. I was willing to take the first action. So my guidelines, my instructions, my commandments are an outflow of my character, the fact that I love you and that I care for you. See, if we flip it around, we get way out of whack and we start to think, well, in order for God to save me, I have to obey him. It's opposite. God offers to save us, and then we have the opportunity to respond to that love, to respond to that mercy in obedience. So that's the first thing. Don't get that out of order. The second thing is God's command. You shall not have any other God but me. See, the world that the Israelites were living in was polytheistic. That's a fancy word. If you kind of break it down, poly, many, and theism, God. Many gods. Many of the different people groups that lived in the regions where the Israelites were living and traveling worshiped all sorts of gods. Gods of agriculture, gods of the sun, gods that they had come up with. There was all sorts of different myths and statues and ideas of who and what God was. But Yahweh, the God of the Bible, the God of the Hebrews, has revealed himself to be the one true God. If you remember, back when we were in Egypt in this story, there are all these different Egyptian gods, and Yahweh proves his power over them. They're not gods at all. They're just fake. They're ideas. They're statues. But Yahweh is the only one who has control over everything. And he proves that with the miracles that he performs through Moses and the miracles that he performs with all of the various plagues throughout the land of Israel. Even Pharaoh's closest confidants, even the people of Egypt, look and see all that Yahweh does, and they go, this guy is really the one true God. And so do you see how that's actually loving? We could look at it and go, man, God's getting awfully grouchy about making sure there's no other gods but him. But imagine how dangerous and detrimental it would be to your life if you worshiped and dedicated your life to something that is not even real, an idea that doesn't even hold water. This is why in his love, Yahweh says, worship only me, because I'm the real deal. I'm the only one that can deliver you from slavery with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. I'm the only one that can rescue you from your sin. I'm the only one that can actually answer your prayers. So for God to say, trust me, have only me as your God, is actually good for you, because he's the only real God, and he's the only one that can do anything about the struggles and the difficulties in this life. And he's really the only one who can change the life to come, heaven or hell for eternity. I hope that's a great start to the 10 Commandments. I hope you don't feel like these are like legalistic drudgery duty, but that you begin to see that the 10 Commandments are God's example of love for you, his instructions on the best possible way to live, both in relationship with him and with one another. Have a great day. We'll see you back here again soon for another version of BASECAMP.